I always got people in the fandom never truly understood Seafair Cookie's character. You know what I mean? Because I feel like every time you see like videos about Seafair Cookie, it's usually just about her love for the moon or Moonlight Cookie in this instance. But it's never truly about Seafair Cookie's character, her personality, or what she wants, you know? I always feel like the fandom always misunderstood her in that aspect. And I think that's kind of sad, you know? Because, like, I don't think she truly deserves that disrespect, you know? So, when, like, people are, like, defending Seaman, they usually say the bond. It's about the bond, like, the evidence is the bond, or the trust in the relationship chart that C. Franklin has with Moonlight, which, to me, I always thought that was never truly evidence. That's just, like, you saying that, because that's true, but, like, what is it in the bond story that provides evidence that semen is canon? Although I'm not talking about it today. Now, I will talk about it later. But for now, I wanted to talk about the costume mom, because I always thought that story was interesting when it came to the characters in it in particular. So there are two characters in the story that the costume mom names. The Fairy of the Sea, who is the main character, and the Guardian of Moonlight, who isn't as important of a character, but it does drive the main character's motives to do what they do. And so when the series begins, like talks about like how like the moon's light is like blinding everyone, and it especially blinds the Fairy of the Sea, who falls in love with the moon, and she's like the light captivates her point of view to the point where she's willing to ignore the creatures of the sea and like other guardians just so she could get closer to the moon. As mentioned, the creatures of the sea want the Fairy of the Sea to do her job, which her job in that instance is to be a protector. The other dragons, guardians, angels, and even other fairies want the Fairy of the Sea to do her job as well. The Fairy of the Sea refuses to be in the presence of other light, like an example, the sunlight. It even shows in the story that the Fairy of the Sea is willing to hide in her tower just so she won't have to feel the presence of the sunlight, because all she wants is the moonlight and the moon and all that. This in and on itself actually shows the Fairy of the Sea's selfishness. She's very selfish, actually. And this is not a good character trait. The fairy then raised her sword, pointing its blade at the moon. The blade glistened in the pale moonlight, capturing the guardian's attention. She, who never looked down for all those years, slowly turned her gaze towards the sea. And that is when their eyes met. The fairy of the sea thought she's finally getting what she wanted after all this time. It's almost as if it's a dream come true for her. This is why, like, later on in the story, you can see her. She's like trying to take in the moment. Like time has stopped. Like she's excited. That's when she heard a voice, clear and bright. Open your eyes. The Fairy of the Sea did as she was told, and looked up. Then, as she grasped the hand emerging out of the blinding light. At this point in the story, I feel like many people who ship Sea Moon would probably be like, "Oh my God, it's canon! It's canon! Woo woo, it's canon!" But like, I don't think it's canon. Although I will talk about that another day. But like for now, I think what stems is this not being a good moment is the last paragraph in particular. There are two options that the last paragraph gives us as to saying what happened to Sea Fairy Cookie, or the Fairy of the Sea in this instance. Did she fall asleep for an eternity? Has she lost once and for all? Never once does it state that did she finally accomplish her goal. You know what I mean? If her goal was to get closer to the moon, why is it that it never truly gives us that option to think about? For the first question, when it says, did she fall asleep for an eternity? Fall asleep for an eternity, that sentence in and on itself could be interpreted as death. Like, did she die? Did she die? Which, again, you wouldn't really think that if the last sentence were to say she finally got what she wanted. Again, they don't really present that as an option. has she left once and for all? Well, when we look at the term once and for all, the term itself is an idiom, meaning it finally happened or completely happened. And left is like it's just another way to say leave. So in other words, this is basically saying did she leave or was she excommunicated? Which in that instance, I think that did truly happen. Considering how the sentence then she grasped the hand emerging out of the blinding light, it could have been that the moonlight herself actually punished Seafarer Cookie for not doing her job, like it was stated earlier in the story, where she blatantly ignored the others just so she could get closer to the moon. It shows her selfishness. It shows the fairy to see selfishness, in that the guardian of the moonlight, doing her job, did what she had to do. She punished the fairy to see, rightly so. But that's the beauty of it. It's left up to interpretation. But it's the fact that it only gives us these two options to be left up as interpretation. In other words, it's basically saying, did Sea Fairy Cookie say bye? Or did she die? Yeah, like, honestly. That's like, ooh lordy. But the last sentence, a new legend surfaced, the dark side of the moon, held in ocean, is actually something I want to come back to. Or like even the title of the story, The Sea and the Dark Side of the Moon, is something like I have an inference for, but first we need to talk about Seafried Cookie's costume. Rippling Moonlight is Seafried Cookie's legendary costume, which when it comes to design, I don't really liked it because like look at that hair, girl, you need some hairstyling over there. Other than that, I think the story behind her costume is actually really interesting. But again, it's like that's the thing that people don't like really truly think about is the costume and the story behind it, or like connecting that with the story. But anyways, in the description, there's a sentence that says, Seafarer Cookie now holds the essence of the night. Which the term essence itself is like basically a way of saying character. You know how the character of someone, you know? So if we were to replace the word essence with character, the sentence would now read, Seafarer Cookie now holds the character of the night. This itself is meaning that Seafarer Cookie has the character traits of the knight. She isn't the knight itself, but she has the character traits. She's reflecting the traits of the knight. Delicate folds of her dress that resemble a seashell of ivory white at night now hides the sorrowful gloom of the night sea. You think, again, because when people interpret the costume, they interpret it as more like, oh, she finally got what she wanted. She finally got to the moon. But is that the case? And why is it that in the sentence in particular, it says at day now to hide the sorrowful gloom of the night sea? Why would she wear a dress of ivory white if it's to hide the sorrowful gloom of the night sea? It's almost as if she's sad about something. But what is she sad about? Could it be the reason for Seafarer Cookie's wistful gaze is behind the sword she now holds that shines so coldly? I think this sentence in particular is like what gives the story itself meaning. And like what I mean is that the meaning of the story, in my opinion, is about punishment. But I'll talk about that more later. The word I wanted to see in more particular is the word wistful, which that in and on itself means yearning mingled with melancholy, which melancholy is just a fancy word to say sad. And that's the instance. Why would Seafarer Cookie be sad? Why would she be yearning but being sad if she finally reached the thing she was looking for? That's if she was punished for, which, in my opinion, I think she was. And that's because the sea and the dark side of the moon is about punishment. Although the story itself is not canon, the story itself is a symbolic retribute about Seafarer Cookie's character, about how Seafarer Cookie's selfishness and arrogance, and a little bit of ignorance and a little bit of arrogance, about how she let the moon blind her. And to that, I think that's where the idea of her curse comes from. The idea of her curse, of which froze her in the tower for all those years. My inference is that the moon itself cursed Seafarer Cookie because Seafarer Cookie's love, because Seafarer Cookie's selfish love Instead of using her love for selfless ways, she uses it in selfish ways. Because she's selfish, the moon wants Seafair Cookie to use her love in a selfless way. This is like probably why she can't reach the moon in the first place. It's because of the fact the moon doesn't want her to reach her. It's because the moon itself doesn't want Sea Fairy Cookie to reach it. The moon itself wants Sea Fairy Cookie to grow and become a better character. The moon wants Sea Fairy Cookie to be selfless and wants to use her love for others and not for solely one person. Only then will the moon truly accept the love of Sea Fairy Cookie. It kind of makes more sense when you think about it, because Sea Fairy Cookie herself sees the moon as like this character entity, and that way it also makes Sea Fairy Cookie a little bit arrogant when you think about it, because she only truly uses her love for the moon, and the moon is all she wants. She never wants is selfless, you know. And honestly, if that's where they wanted to go with this story, I honestly think the curse and that could be best friends. Because that's the whole purpose behind the curse of Sea Fairy Cookie's sword. I think that could make Sea Fairy Cookie a better character. You know, it could be legendary almost, you know? But that's the thing, is that people don't truly like break down the story and like see it in that way, because they will read it at surface value and be like, oh my god, this is love, oh my gosh, Steven is so cute, blah 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 blah. But it's like, well, before you make that assessment, I think you should truly break down the story and truly understand that before you make an assessment like that, you know? Anyways, I'm gonna figure it out.